Now, as the ANC's National Executive Committee meeting wraps up today, what is the ruling party's plan to govern going forward? Increasing numbers of municipalities are battling to provide services and in some cases even pay salaries. Can the ruling party turn things around, or are we getting more empty promises? To get some reaction now, I'm joined by political analyst Lukhanyo Vangqa. Lukhanyo, thank you very much for your time here on eNCA. Just firstly, hearing from Thembi at some point during that briefing today saying 43 municipalities are facing fiscal collapse. This is municipalities, for instance, including Ditsobotla. It's in dire state. Municipalities are in a dire state. Do you think that we're getting empty promises, or will they be able to turn things around? It's been years now.
Maseko, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me, and afternoon to those that are joining us on the platform. The system of local government faces challenges, and some of those were enumerated by Thembi, who's also the Minister of Local Government and Traditional Affairs in government. And some of those challenges that you find there are sort of systematic challenges of some of these municipalities not having the financial viability to be able to stand on their own. So what you needed to do in that instance is to be able to pull together some of the resources from the other bigger municipalities that are bordering those that are unable to sustain themselves, so that you could have what they now term the district development model, where you're pulling together strategic planning skills, you're pulling together financial resources, and you're also pulling together some of the governance frameworks that you find existing in the other municipalities that are lacking in some of those other municipalities. Because some of them, just conceptually speaking, Maseko, they cannot be able to sustain themselves. You heard Thembi as well mention municipalities where there's only one street that has the financial capability to be able to pay, because all the other residents are indigenous residents that are too poor to be able to pay and finance the municipalities. So the system that we have, that municipalities might generate about 90% of their revenues from charging their residents, don't work in some of those instances where we have the rural municipalities. So they have a plan now that they've put together, which is the district development model. They need to execute on those plans so that they can be able to do this pooling of resources to protect the weaker municipalities by leveraging the stronger municipalities. They just need to implement that.
All right. So you agree that that paper actually would work. It's just implementation that would be a problem.
Yes, I agree. It would work. It has all the requirements that are needed to be able to pull together the resources. Because what you do in the district development model is that you merge the planning for the local municipalities together with the district and the metros, together with provincial and national governments as well, into one pool of resources, so they can be able to work. What I don't think is going to work, however, Maseko, is this overburdening of processes and bureaucracy, because now apparently there's an IMC that is going to be led by the Deputy President that is going to be looking at strategic planning for these municipalities. I don't think that is necessary, because already you have the framework in the district development model. You also have the framework from the DPME that is responsible for planning in government. So why do you need another structure that is now going to lead a layer of bureaucracy above that? I don't think that's necessary. The Deputy President needs to stay away from this process. Thembi seems to be conversant in issues of local government. She's a former president of SALGA, the Association of Local Government. So she has the knowledge and she's conversant on these matters. She just needs to be given the space to be able to implement the district development model fully, so that we can realize some of the benefits that the model promises residents.
And I mean, you look at what the COPTA minister said in Thembi when it comes to a municipality such as Nelson Mandela Bay, where she says between 2016 and 2021, they had about 520 million rand at the Human Settlements Department, and they didn't even build a single house. So there is money that would be given to municipalities, but they don't deliver. And then you have the AG coming back to say then what they do is that they would employ, independent people to do the job that government workers are supposed to do, and that also keeps wasting money. So it's a vicious cycle.
Yes. So one of the other challenges that you have, especially with local government, is that they lack the skills to be able to carry out some of the strategic initiatives that they have, especially on infrastructure development. So they don't have the engineering skills, they don't have the project management skills, they don't have the financial engineering skills as well to be able to put together this developmental finance models that are needed to carry some of these projects. So the other thing that the COGTA minister needs to focus on is how do you give the skills to some of these municipalities, because honestly, what we have as well as a challenge in society is that people don't want to go live in these rural communities. So you have rural municipalities in the outskirts of Nkanduli, and people don't want to use their skills or live in those communities. They would rather use their engineering skills to engineer financial products for sentence-based financial firms and developmental finance institutions, rather than get their skills to go there. So there needs to be a way to incentivize some of these skills to be broadly to be used more broadly, actually, in society, and be given to the municipalities or the areas that need them best. And I think I wrote in about 2017 about what it means to be an educated person in Africa, and that should mean service to Africa. We must use our skills that we get in these institutions of higher learning, not to go work in Sentin so that we can afford extravagant lifestyle and buy expensive cognac, but rather to develop and to contribute more meaningfully in the development of our people by taking our skills to some of the areas that we grew up in the rural communities that our grandparents still stay in, so that we can see development in those areas as well.
And I mean, Lukhanyo, just to talk about other topics besides the briefing that happened earlier, at 2 o'clock they are expected to also brief about their interventions when it comes to immigration laws, right? And that also speaks directly to Home Affairs and its role in peace and stability, part of, their policy papers. So that's going to be very important, especially looking at how they've agreed and they have admitted since last year in June with their policy conference and in December as well, how immigration and illegal immigration is also affecting their ability to actually offer services, jobs as well, etc., and security in the country.
Yes, so there's a contradictory view with regards to immigration that we have in the country. One of the things that we must realize is that we must have a freer movement of people and goods across these artificially created borders that we have, so that we can have this one united Africa that is going to be able to compete more, adequately with the international community, with the Chinese, with the Indian economies, and also with the European economies. So 2063, Agenda 2063 of the African Union is meant to be able to consolidate Africa into one trading bloc and one economic bloc, so that we can have this free movement of people and goods across these country borders. Now, when the ANC comes to the fore and endorses or embraces this xenophobic attitudes of wanting to detach South Africa from the rest of Africa, then we are going to give up our leadership role to countries that are embracing a more Pan-Africanist view to economic development, such as Rwanda, such as Kenya, and even Nigeria, that are acting more as a consolidated bloc on the rest of the continent. So those are some of the challenges that we need to resolve as society. Which way do we want to go? Do we want to take an isolationist view to Africa's development, or do we want to be integral to Africa's development, which means we need to open up our borders, which means that we need to open up our economies and integrate more onto the rest of the African continent, and in that way we can have a long-term development view. If not, then we can realize some quick gains, Maseko. You can chuck people out of the country and you realize some small gains in the short term, but in the longer term we'll be more isolated and will become more irrelevant in Africa's greater development story towards Agenda 2063.
Yeah, and I think Home Affairs will be very important in the acts that are directed at them in terms of this. And I know that they did also discuss having an immigration board in July last year during policy conference, and I wonder what they're going to say at 2 o'clock this afternoon. My last question to you, Lukhanyo, the ANC saying it doesn't mind, having discussions with the Democratic Alliance in terms of a coalition. They're open to that. But of course, we know that the Democratic Alliance wants to partner with anybody to get that 50+1 to oust the ANC. What do you see happening, especially on a national level, as we approach the national government elections?
I don't think the greater rank and file membership of the ANC is going to be open to coalition arrangements with the DA, which they view as an enemy of the revolution, and they view as a strategic competitor to the National Democratic Revolution. So the rank and file is not going to be agreeable with that. But that approach is in alignment with the DA's strong, long-term strategy of being an anchor tenant in any coalition government. And they wanted to have a simplified coalition. What they call simplified coalition is a coalition with one or two members in it, in an effort to ensure that there is a broader alignment and there's less friction in those coalition arrangements. So Helen Zilla's broader strategy is to go into a coalition with a Cyril Ramaphosa-led ANC, and with him having won the conference last year, those things can be brought to the fore, and the DA would be more open to those conversations. But for the ANC's rank and file, I don't think they will be amenable to such an arrangement.
It's going to be quite an interesting few months. Thank you very much for your insights. Lukhanyo Vangqa, a political analyst there, just speaking to us. And that 2 o'clock briefing by the African National Congress as it concludes its 3-day NEC meeting at 2 o'clock. We'll take you there live as soon as it gets underway.